Let me say welcome again to Local Foods College. This is week 2, and this week we're trying something different than we've ever done before. We have a series of presenters. We're going to invite you to watch a set of interviews with those presenters, and then we'll host a panel discussion afterwards. But first I'm going to ask Allison Link to show you a little bit about navigating the Moodle website, and she'll just do that with a screen share right here, so just stay tuned in. Thanks, Allison.
All right. Thanks, Linda. I think we should all be able to hear me now, hopefully. I'm going to go ahead and do the screen share really quickly and show you what you can be looking at. So if you pull up the Moodle site, what we're going to do this week is you'll see the video inside the site, and you'll see that just fine. So if you have a question that you want us to address, that's where you can stream the video. And then if you have a question, go ahead and click on that Got a Question, Ask It Here. And that should open up either a new window or a new tab, depending on what browser you're using. And if you're having trouble, we'd recommend trying to switch to either Firefox or Chrome. Those two browsers seem to be doing better for us than most. But go ahead and feel free to ask a question on this form for our presenters. So go ahead and type anything in that box. You can go ahead and also say we'll go ahead and put them into the discussion forum. So if you go ahead and submit the questions there, and any that we don't have time to cover today live, we will put into the discussion forum on the Moodle site where it says discuss this topic.
Okay, so now you'll want to go to your Local Foods College page, which I should be showing you right now, and below the live link you'll see a link called Specialty Products Season 2 Short Videos Combined. So you'll see the live link space, you'll see the Ask a Question, and just below that is a video. Please open that now and watch that. That is a series of interviews with these people that are presenting, and we'll join back here at 6:45 with the panel session. You can ask a question anytime while the video is playing.
Yep. So click that button. Click the Specialty Product Session video button. You're welcome to watch. We've got people standing by who are in that video to answer your questions. And then as questions come up while you're watching that video, post it in the Got a Question form that we have for you. And that will give our presenters here a chance to have a look at your questions. We'll kind of share that back here, and then they'll be ready to help respond to those as they come in. So we've got them standing by ready to answer. Okay, so for those of you out there, go ahead and refresh your page. And we're going to go ahead and start our panel with some questions if we have any. All right, so go ahead and refresh your page. You can see the, because some of you might not be able to see that chat box right now. So if you do that and come on in, we're seeing a couple folks out there. So if you refresh your Moodle page up at the top, you'll see a chat box. So if you're having any technical difficulties, go ahead and enter there. And what we're going to do is we'll have you watch the videos afterwards so that we can just go ahead and launch into some questions with the panelists now already. But feel free to keep posting questions in the box that says Got a Question, Ask It Here. Just click on that and keep posting questions as they come if you have any come up. You also, though, will be monitoring the technical support. Just put a chat up there, so if there are any of you who are having trouble with streaming the video, it does sound like a couple people are still having trouble streaming the video, we'll address that there in the chat box. Or feel free to put it in the question box and give us a contact on you, and we can try to follow up too for that. But let's go ahead and launch. And I'm kind of thinking we may as well. So again, those videos are available for you below, and our panelists are featured in those. But I'm thinking maybe just launching an initial question. One thing I'm curious about, since this group is new to me, is just how everyone got started in growing what they're growing. Did you start somewhere else? And how are you starting, how did you get started in your specialty food? I don't know if that's a good question to launch with, Linda, but I'd be curious to know.
I think that's a great question.
Go ahead.
Kim, will you start? Kim Swanson?
Yes, do you have me unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. What was the question?
Tell a little bit about how you got started with the production of garlic and other products that you grow.
Well, we became interested in high tunnel gardening, and there's 3 of us couples who put up a high tunnel together, and we called ourselves Cabin View Gardens. And we just started, the reason we started garlic is we happened to visit Terry Ninick's farm and seen how nice and we use a lot of garlic in our canning, so we decided that we would try it. So that's kind of how we got started. He kind of gave us some information on, what to grow in our area. We went to some high tunnel meetings, and we use a lot of garlic, all 3 of us couples. So that's kind of how we started wanting to grow garlic, and it's very successful for us right now.
Thank you. Sharon, I'm going to go to you next. There, you're unmuted. This is Sharon Weiss.
Hello.
And Ron.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, speak up.
Okay, we got started. We actually had some land that we had some asparagus on, and we actually sold that land, and then I started to plant some in the garden on my own, and actually just been adding to it every year, and we are up to like 2.5 acres right now of asparagus. So
great. And Rebecca and Tammy, I'll go to you next, and I know you're not necessarily growing a particular thing. No, I'm going to go to Mike Reichenbach next.
Okay. Yes, I am unmuted. So how did I get started? For me, the connection to foods from the woods really comes from a connection to places and people, and many stories. But the one where I really got started was on a small farm in southern Illinois where my mom grew up. We'd go down there every summer from my home in Chicago and pick blackberries. It'd be late July, early August. And then we'd go ahead and cook up some jam. And so that's how I got started.
Great. So one of the questions that came in online was about some technical help in getting asparagus started. Sharon, can you describe a bit how it's a crown in the ground, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about starting with seeds too. Just say a little bit about how you start that production.
All right. Yeah, when I first started, I started off with seeds and just actually put some in a little seed container and started that under grow lights and stuff and all that good, good stuff. But then we started buying some crowns of our own, then 1-year-old crowns, and started that way. We've actually got more now after. It's easier to do it with the 1-year-old crowns, so much easier than the seeds.
One question I had for you all then too is, when you sort of started in your specialty, was there anything you were surprised at, anything you weren't expecting, anything kind of unpredictable as you were branching out? Don't all chime in at once. Kind of the biggest surprise that you had when you're kind of going more into specialty products.
Allison, do you want me to jump in?
Sure, go for it. Yeah, and you can just unmute yourself too if you want to jump in and go ahead and.
It's just I have the mixer in front of me.
Oh yeah.
That way. There. Okay, I'm unmuted. Yeah. one of the resources that's on the Moodle site is the Harvester Handbook, and in the Harvester Handbook are quite a few descriptions of mushrooms that you can collect from the woods. And for me, I was used to collecting berries and fruits and nuts prior to getting into collecting mushrooms, and I don't do a lot of collection of mushrooms now, but for a while I did when I was living on the West Coast, and I guess the biggest surprise for me is I was out working. I was working for the Forest Service, and I came across these 2 mushrooms out in the woods, and they were very, very large for the species. They were morel mushrooms, and they were about 9 inches tall and about 3 inches in diameter, which is unusually large for that type of mushroom. But I didn't know what they were, and I think that started my interest in looking at other things besides the berries and the nuts and the fruits.
We have a question for both, applies to both garlic and asparagus, about how do you go about finding the market and selling your product? And Mike, you might have some more to add to this, but I'll go to Kim and Kim Swanson and Van Swanson first.
We our only market right now is either on the farm or at the local farmers market. A lot of people, there's some home growers around here that do some garlic, but it's not real common to grow your own garlic in our area. So it's just, to have them taste it, have them try it. It gives them, it's very fresh, and they can pick it, we harvest around the mid-July, so we start selling it then, and it's kind of fun to show the people when they come to the farm what it looks like, how it's harvested, how it comes up, and that kind of is a little bit of a marketing tool for us too, is just to show them how we do it.
Great, thank you. Sharon and Ron?
Actually, we do a farmer's market too in Mentor, and quite a few people come through there, and we talk about it all the time with them. They ask us questions, and we actually, word of mouth is the best advertising ever. I mean, like I said, I can sell you some asparagus, but then I say you tell your friends, and that it's the best advertising ever to get it out there. So.
Yeah, thank you. Mike, how do the people who are gathering food from the woods approach markets? And
yeah, Linda, thanks for asking that question. It was several years ago that I was organizing a meeting on non-timber forest products, and we had several people in the room who were actually, they were making $2,000 and $3,000 from collecting berries and fruits from their fence rows and from their windbreaks, and they were selling them at various spots around the state. But one of the largest buyers in the state is up in McGregor, and it's called Nostalgia. And what I like about that operation, so if you bring in high bush cranberry, for instance, which I know several years ago he was paying about 90 cents a pound for it. He then would take the product, separate the seeds out, and the seeds would go to like the state nurseries or to other private nurseries for regrowing native high bush cranberry. And so it gets to be a sustainable process, as well as something that people can go ahead and, from just the fence rows and the windbreaks, collect the berries that they find there.
Great, thank you. Becca and Tammy, I see you're back. Can you tell a little bit, say a little bit about the Wild Food Summit and how you got started doing that?
Well, this is our 9th year for the Wild Food Summit to happen. It's been going on in White Earth for 9 years, and it really came out of previous extension coordinators and Steve Dahlberg, our extension director, really wanting people to have a more accessible way to gather and to teach people about wild foods throughout a whole weekend, and have it be very hands-on, very experiential, have a camping experience, and really start to have knowledge that you've gained through practicing. So it became less intimidating from learning from a book, but learning from people who were, I wouldn't say experts, but just had a lot of knowledge in plants and what was safe to eat. So.
Thank you. Let me ask the panelists, what is something that you've learned new about some of the other panelists here? I know some of you probably are pretty familiar with one another, but some of you might be just hearing about one another for the first time. Do you have a question that you'd like to ask the other panelists?
I'm still really curious, Mike, about when we get beyond barter and trade, which seems to be fair, what other rules and regulations we really do need to know on if we wanted to bring our wild foods to the market. Like, I see that you have to be a mushroom certified person to be able to bring wild mushrooms to the market. Is that true with dried plants, for teas?
Yeah, I don't know of any other regulations in this state other than on the mushrooms. You have to have someone from that's certified through the Mycological Association to go ahead and verify that those mushrooms are in fact safe to eat. But the other products, I haven't heard of any regulations around them. There are some that pertain to food safety, like with maple syrup. To sell maple syrup commercially, you do have to have a commercial kitchen, and that's going to be true with almost all your wild foods. So if you're collecting and selling it yourself, on a retail market, you'll need to have in Minnesota at least that commercial kitchen and the inspection by I think it's the health department. But beyond that, you may have a better idea of other foods too. So I'm kind of interested in your experience too with wild foods and harvest.
Well, I think that we've gotten more into just teaching and providing people with the opportunities to learn from knowledgeable people like Sam Thayer, foragersharvest.com, just really trying to bring people together around wild foods with wild food crafters. That's been a really big part of it, and creating a community around that, even if it's for a weekend. People really network, and I think that that's the network of going out with people who have that kind of knowledge. That's what really builds a community across Minnesota of wild crafters. I think that's really empowering. So, and we've been doing it for 9 years now, and people are starting to be wild crafters in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and yeah, so.
I think that's really neat, really an important piece is those connections we can make between other people who are gathering wild edibles, and to really learn from each other. A lot of this for me, I think, came out of my family's experience in the Depression and the need to collect wild foods to go ahead and have to put on the table, and so. That tradition, at least in my family, remained pretty strong with our connections to the land. And you mentioned Minneapolis. One of the questions that I always think about when I think about Minneapolis, I think about Chicago, as I've seen people collecting foods from the woods, the forest preserves, the park district areas in Chicago, is how comfortable do people feel doing this, and the idea you have of bringing people together for 9 years to do wild crafting, I think is one way to build that comfort and knowledge around where it's okay to do this, where it's safe to do that, and what foods are safe.
Maybe you want to start a small club based on a few foods like nettle or dandelion, but you don't have to do a 3-day summit that's been going on for 9 years and invite 150 people to it and big speakers. You can really make this doable in your community, wherever that is. And Facebook is a great reference. There's a lot of folks online that are doing wild crafting, and I could also give people some links to that. So.
Good, and we'll. So for those listening, be sure to tune into the discussion forum online after this session and over the next week, and we'll get more of those questions about other links to you at that time. I'd like to go to a question from the Ask a Question list now, and it's about garlic, describing how you plant those and in the high tunnel and just the process for actually getting that into the ground. So Kim, or excuse me, yes, Kim.
Okay, we plant one end of the high tunnel, the outer end, because it seems like it's a lower crop and we don't have to worry about trellising in that part. We have two drip tapes that go down about a 3-foot row, and we plant on each side of the drip tape, so we actually have 4 rows of garlic interchanged going down the high tunnel. So if we have a 96-foot high tunnel, we can get around 800 cloves planted in that area. We go about every 4 to 5 inches because we probably plant very densely, but with the high tunnel, we have the great the heat and the temperatures are at a pretty good level, even from the winter. So there's not a lot of thawing and freezing, and we fertilize it really well and irrigate it, and so that's why we kind of plant very densely, and it's worked for us. So we plant about 4 to 5 inches in the ground. We use tulip bulb planters to dig the hole for it and put them in. And we plant the garlic around the first week of October. And we usually see a little bit of it by the end of November when it starts to freeze up. And then once the ground freezes on top a little bit, then we cover it with about 4 inches of mulch. And then the next year it comes up, we don't have a lot to worry about other than maybe taking the scapes off, and then we'll harvest around mid-July.
Great, thank you. Another question that was chatted in says, tell me, when and where is the Wild Food Summit?
The Wild Food Summit is in White Earth, Minnesota, up by Mahnomen. It is usually the 3rd weekend of June. And this year, I think that's the 16th through the 18th, and you can go to our wildfoodsummit.org site where we'll be posting how to sign up to be part of it, usually around the beginning, actually it's going to be the middle of February by the time we get registration information up. It is very competitive. It's a first come, first serve. We give notice about what exact time we're posting the registration, and it's old-fashioned mail in your registration. And that way it keeps it a little more, I mean, it's kind of old school, but it has a lot more control in some ways. So, and actually it's the 19th through the 22nd this year, apologies, of June.
I think I'll ask a question that you can each respond to in turn. I think a lot of, the people who are doing local food production or harvesting, it's really because of a passion. So maybe you can say a little bit about what are some of the things that you really love about this work that you do, and what it means to you, sort of in fulfilling that passion or that personal interest. Sharon, I'll start with you.
Okay, I actually like gardening, so that's, I mean, people say, oh, that's a lot of work, but no, it's not a lot of work if you like it, and I like visiting with the people, especially like at the farmers markets, and just it's fun just visiting with the people on asparagus and talking about it. So
Linda, I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat the question for me.
Okay, I'm just wondering what it is that you really love or enjoy about the work that you do in harvesting yourself and also in educating others about harvesting.
Well, Linda, I'll talk about what I enjoy about it for personal reasons, because that's really where my interest in this has come from. And it goes back to something I think I've already said, and that's just the connections to places and to people. So I've moved around the country a bit. I've been in Illinois, I've been in Oregon, I've been in Minnesota, and each place offers some different foods and different surprises, I think, out in the woods. The biggest surprise in Minnesota that I ran into was up in the Boundary Water Canoe Area Wilderness. I was up there, and you don't really expect to find dandelions up in the boundary waters, but we found an area that was an old resort, and there were a lot of dandelions. It was early spring. We had been catching some fish. We'd brought a lot of spices for the fish, and so we tried dandelion greens with a whole wide range of different spices, some with some garlic, some with hot peppers, and it was really good. I was with a bunch of youth from Georgia on that trip, and they were missing greens, and so we were able to supply.
That sounds wonderful. Kim and Van?
I think that probably, first of all three of us couples that are involved in Cabin View Gardens originally liked to garden, but after we'd gone to a number of sessions on high tunnels, we saw the exceptional growth. They're kind of new to our area because we live in a cold climate, and by putting up high tunnels, we could produce, just an abundance of produce in a high tunnel, and that kind of got us geared up to say, we kind of really like to produce that much. And then, of course, selling it was a new experience for us to go to farmers markets, but we took pride in that. We try provide a very clean, good product, fresh product, I guess, too. A lot of our stuff is picked just the day before or the day of our sale. And another thing we really enjoy in the middle of the week, we don't go to the farmer's market, but we are open on the farm. And we have a lot of people come out, and they just really can't believe. They like to come in the high tunnel. We invite them in if they've never seen it, and they can't believe what kind of volume we can produce in there. And it's kind of hard for us to believe, even though we see it every day during the production year, and we've done it for 4 years. But it's still amazing when plants get the water and heat they need, how they can produce. So we enjoy that, and we've also done a lot of tours for children. Every year for years, I had kindergarten youth coming out to I've got kind of a hobby farm, and now we also take them in the high tunnel, and they kind of get to taste a few greens just to taste it. And if we can educate the next generation on eating maybe more fruits and vegetables and stuff, it's all kind of enjoyment. So I think that probably sums it up. I don't know, Kim, if you have anything more to add. It's we enjoy working together, and we enjoy selling product and having people out.
Great, thank you. Tammy and Rebecca. What happened there? The video from the video feed froze there, so.
Yeah, Linda, we can give them a second to see if they refresh. I was seeing, I was seeing a bunch of questions on asparagus.
Yeah, do you want to read those? That's
Tammy and Rebecca, though, right?
No, Sharon and Ron are the asparagus folks.
So I was actually seeing a bunch that I thought, and then maybe we can come back to them about what they enjoy. And as an asparagus lover myself, I would actually go out and venture to say asparagus is my favorite vegetable. Glad to know it's close to home. And we've got a couple, so I'll just kind of go down the list, and maybe we can just answer them quickly. So someone is saying they have a lot of wild asparagus growing and can collect seeds easily, but how do you get a seed of asparagus to the crown stage? That's what they're curious about. Any thoughts there?
Oops. Okay, can you hear me now? What was the question again?
So they're saying they have a lot of wild asparagus growing and can collect seeds easily, but how do you get a seed of asparagus to the crown stage?
Well, they would just have to, like I did in the beginning. I had the seeds, and I put them in those little containers, and grew them, and then they can put them out into the garden, and then in rows and stuff. And they'll get bigger into the crown stage, the 1-year-old stage by the following year. So.
Okay. And we also have a couple kind of more technical questions on asparagus too. They're wondering what the average yield per acre is. Realizing that the variables kind of change yearly. And if your current production is profitable then?
Yeah, actually this year we did very well. Usually it's about 1,500 pounds per acre, and we got actually a couple thousand per acre. So actually we had the 2 acres and we had 4,000 pounds that we picked. So
Yeah.
it was very profitable. So.
And I think they're also wondering, do you tend to, or what challenges also, if you're going on a more of a commercial scale, I think maybe you mentioned that briefly, what challenges do you anticipate with hiring and training employees? What processes will they need to learn for that?
Yeah, well, that's coming down the road. We haven't gotten that far yet, but right now it's just been our family and stuff. We haven't gotten that far yet, so.
Okay, yeah, any processes that are kind of are particularly difficult with soil prep, irrigation, planting, pest control, post-harvest handling?
Weed control weeds can get out of hand pretty easy with it. So that's you have to stay on top of that. And there are some different chemicals you can use in the spring before any of the crowns start coming up. Whatever, we don't put any chemical on any growing plants that we're going to harvest. So that's one thing we just to keep away from chemicals being absorbed into the asparagus.
Okay. I think that's what we got for asparagus there, and we'll maybe post. There was a big long question about asparagus, so we've got people interested. We'll maybe post that in the discussion forum too after if there's anything more specific. But thank you.
Rebecca and Tammy?
Wait, one more asparagus question. Sorry, while we're at it, can you resurrect 40-year-old asparagus by transplanting?
40-year-old asparagus plant has such a big root down there you couldn't even dig it up. You'd need a tractor and loader or a backhoe or something to get that dug up.
They're very big, very big.
So good luck with the transplanting part of that. It's not going to happen. All right, we're good on asparagus. I think that's quite a bit. But, thank you.
Tammy and Rebecca, will come back to you. We had earlier asked about sort of what do you really love about the harvesting and the use of those crops. Let's see, why am I not hearing you?
Okay, looks like they froze again.
Froze up again? Okay.
While we're at it, to go back, bounce the asparagus ball back, we just had one more question that came up on asparagus. Is it imperative to prune first-year asparagus to make it produce the following year? For first-year asparagus.
You don't cut it at all. You just let them grow to have the vines, the ferns to put reserves into the roots. So actually you don't cut it at all the first year, just let it get as much root reserves as possible.
Okay, thank you. You know, that question came up about staffing, and I think each of you have some, some interesting stories to tell about that. I'll go to Kim and Van first, and you can talk about how you, sort of do the division of labor among the various folks how people sort of step up to take different roles.
We have 3 couples in our Cabin View Gardens. We each have our little unique ways of doing things. Van and Dee Dee, that's where the farm is located. They have the high tunnels. Van raises beef, so we have our compost that we can put on in the fall. And down in Carolyn, Carolyn's a great canner along with Dee Dee. We do a lot of the canning for our farmers market that way, and Don is very handy, so if we need something built on the high tunnels, he does that. My husband does a lot of electrical stuff, and he's kind of a handyman too, so he helps with that. And then I love the growing of the seeds. I start all the seeds for the high tunnel in my house in the basement, and I have a lot of shelving units with a lot of lights. So I get it to that point. My dad built me a greenhouse on wheels, since we have to acclimate the plants to the sun earlier than most. We have a lot of frost at nights yet in April is when I put them out, so I can just wheel my little greenhouse back into the garage and bring it back out again. So that's kind of what I do, and I keep track of the plants, and I do the pruning in the high tunnels, and so that's my love, is the growing part of it. So it really works out well. We get together and we do all the picking together, and all the getting it ready for the farmers market, and we do a lot of the the cleanup work and everything after we're done. So it works really well for the 6 of us, and we're at the point where we don't want to get any bigger because we can't handle it. We all still pretty much work full time. So until we retire, we'll see what happens then.
One other thing I maybe can add to that is, one thing we kind of agreed on, being there are 3 couples, is the fact that if you have a family outing, we didn't want this to get in the way of our personal lives necessarily. It takes up a lot of that, but if somebody has a wedding that weekend or something and they aren't there, take off, get out of there, get away. You need to get away from it a little bit too, as long as you don't abuse it. And so far, the 3 couples, we all do our parts, and we recognize that if somebody has to go or be gone a certain time, you take off, but then get back to work, and the other person might need to go another weekend or something. So we worked that out pretty well, and so far it's worked out well together.
Great, thank you. Sharon and Ron Weiss, let's hear a little bit about, you mentioned that this is a family, it's you and your children mostly, so just say a little bit about that. And
yeah, mostly it's our family, and then we've had, like, my folks and Ron's folks have helped quite a bit too. Neighbors, we've had a couple neighbors. I mean, I guess if we're picking, they stop by, they'll be put to work. So they come in and they actually offer though, so it's not like it's, they offer. So, but yeah, from anything from harvesting, and then to washing and trimming and getting it ready for the farmer's market or selling it to, it's everybody's job. So we're all involved in it. So.
Thank you. Let's see if we can.
We'll try it again.
Let's try it again. So you can. A lot of times with the wild food harvest, it's probably more of a community affair to sort of everyone pitch in. Maybe you want to say a little bit about how that can work in a wild food harvest situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're out with families and things, and people, so often they just, driving down the road, you'll just pass by everything and not think that there's anything of value there. And once families get out there and actually look, and they learn about the different plants and what's out there, what's available, they see things, their environment, in a whole different light, and they'll go to their own backyard and say, oh, I know about that plant, and you can use it for this, and oh, this one tastes really good. And it's really cool to see the enthusiasm and the confidence and excitement about learning a new plant and its uses, and then they'll go to the next person and teach them, hey, you know what I learned? You can eat this, and it's all right in your own backyard.
Right, and sometimes, a lot of times, some of our presentations will be on a single plant focus, like everything you can do with nettle, and I've been afraid to ask. Or wild rice, yes, it's a wild food, and Bob Shimmick is a great guy up here from White Earth that comes and talks about how to pop wild rice and a bunch of other wild rice uses, traditional food uses. But it's really about, like, the fact that even burdock, which may be a huge noxious kind of weed that a lot of people hate, there's so many uses and parts of the plant that you can eat, and that's what's been so amazing at the summit, is that maybe I knew that you could use the root, but I may not have known that there's a certain time that you can use the stalk, and it's really great in stir fry, and that's a huge quantity of free food, particularly in non-chemical area, part of a farm perhaps that's organic. But so that's exciting. I mean, and then just showing, like, along the water, like, what a mint looks like, and when kids start to recognize that mints have square stems, and then all of a sudden you see them bring a whole bunch of other kids once you've taught them. That's really the excitement of the whole family Wild Food Summit thing.
Great, thanks. And Mike, you have any more to add on this? I guess families doing things together has been part of the theme here, or families and friends. Maybe there's some of that in wild harvesting as well.
Yeah, Linda, absolutely. And I'm fascinated listening to Tammy and Rebecca talk about the event on June 19th and through 22nd. So maybe when that comes out, I'll have to go ahead and grab a registration form and mail it in.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
Good. I see we do have one more question that has to do with managing pests, and I'll put this first to the Swansons. Let me.
Okay, managing pests. We haven't had a whole lot. We had aphids the first couple years. We use neem. We try to go organic as much as we can. As we're not organic, but we try to do that with the spray. The last 2 years, we've had a lot of difficulty with spider mites. They have really, last year they really did some damage. This past year, I tried to keep them under control a little bit better. So that part, I started spraying about the end of June for spider mites, and I sprayed with an organic chemical or organic thing, but sometimes I had to watch the harvest days on that, so I could maybe, keep some, maybe the cucumbers I could keep under more control than I could the peppers because of the waiting period. So that just seems to be a tough one for us, is those spider mites. Other than that, we haven't had a whole lot.
We haven't had a whole lot of pests. The first year we didn't trim the tomatoes very well, and we did have a few mice come in, both tomatoes and peppers. They would come in, but now Kim has done an excellent job of trimming the tomatoes up a little bit, so there's not really a very good hiding place for them. So we haven't, other than the spider mites and things like that, we don't have too much problem. It's indoors, and some of the insects don't really like to be. It's almost like you put a fly in a glass jar. About die trying to get out because they're locked in and they don't like that. So not too much, I'd have to say we don't have too much other than the spider mites problem with.
Good. And now Ron and Sharon?
I guess the biggest pest we have would be the asparagus beetles, and that's after we're done harvest when it's ferning out. They can just move in and lay eggs, and then when they hatch, they can just kind of strip the ferns down. What we do is you can spray right then whenever they get like that, but that's after harvest. So it's not while you're harvesting that you have the problem. It's after.
Okay. Well, we are approaching the 7 o'clock hour, so we'll be wrapping this up soon. This recording of the panel discussion will be live on site, and we'll put up an edited version in a day or two. I really encourage you to take a look at the other materials that are available on the website. On the Moodle site, you'll see extended, in addition to the compiled shorter versions of the interviews, you'll see extended versions of interviews with many of these people, and then many of the materials and topics materials and resources that they have talked about tonight. So I invite you to take a look at those longer interviews to get a lot more information. We've heard a lot and learned a lot from these folks. And also then tune into the discussion. There's a Discuss This Topic link in the January 28th section of the Moodle Classroom. We will post many of the questions that came into the chat here tonight there, and invite each of the presenters to answer those questions, respond to those questions, so that people will have that as another way to really sort of check in. I know sometimes when we're telling a name of a place or a buyer or a chemical or a treatment mechanism, being able to see that in writing is really valuable. So I just want to thank you all again for your willingness to experiment with us in this way, hosting a Hangout panel, and thank you for agreeing to be part of the presentations here and doing the interviews. I'll let each of you sign off in turn, and just want to say thanks again. So you're welcome to say whatever greeting or so long wish you like.
I'll go first here in Thief River. First of all, I would like to just mention that we are quite small. We only have 2 high tunnels, so in the world of high tunnels, we are quite small. We do think we grow a lot of stuff in the high tunnels. It's a lot of work. We also know Sharon and Ron that grow the asparagus. This is a lot of work. However, if people aren't in it for selling at farmers market, you can put smaller high tunnels up and so forth and just have a wonderful product for just your family and maybe a neighbor or something. So, not to scare you away and say, well, the high tunnels aren't for me, and I'm not saying they are for everybody, but they are a lot of work. But for a family, you can produce just an abundant amount of produce in a small area. And thank you for having us. We appreciate it, and thanks for all the people listening.
Thanks, Anne.
Well, we're glad we get to see you most of the time.
Yeah.
And please check out wildfoodsummit.org. We answer any questions you can. Just our emails should be up there. And if you have specific more questions, love to answer them. All are welcome to attend. You get your registration in on time. And this year we'll be figuring out how to carry this forward, how to make more wild food groups throughout the state. That's really what our focus is for this year's summit, because you can't go on forever. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Tammy and Rebecca. Mike?
Okay. Linda, thanks for having me on this panel. It was really good. It was great hearing about asparagus, because we've got a garden and I've been trying to grow asparagus and we haven't had too much success. So I picked up a few things, and to hear Tammy and Rebecca talk about the Wild Food Summit has been really good. The high tunnel stuff. So for those folks who are listening and haven't been out harvesting different wild foods or seeing what's out there, the final thing I want to say is, a lot of times I just go out and harvest enough for a handful to eat when I'm out on a hike. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't have to be huge quantities.
Good words. Thank you, Mike. Ron and Sharon.
We want to thank you. This was great, and we'll answer any questions that come along on there. And enjoy asparagus, everybody.
Indeed. Allison, do you want to close us out?
Sure. I guess all I'll say is I'm humbled by the breadth of specialty foods that we've seen here. I do have a personal love for asparagus, so I'm already kind of salivating, but excited about heading to the Wild Food Summit if I get my registration in. So I've learned a lot here. This is sort of all kind of great new territory for me to explore, and I'm hungry right now. That's all I can say. Dinner time. I should say though, from a technical perspective, since we're kind of using this technology to bring you bigger panels, this is sort of a way for us to bring you a broader kind of scope of faces and kind of people who are engaging. But do give us feedback on how that's working for you. So there's an evaluation link on the Moodle page that you'll see there, and we will try to get your questions and also post it to that discuss this topic forum, so you can get a little more in depth, because I know we didn't have time for all of the questions. So please do keep clicking back in and out there and check in frequently. But also, that evaluation link will help us. We look through that and we kind of reevaluate how things are working, and do try to do what we can to make this work better every day. So thanks for your patience.
Yep. Thanks for your help, Allison. Thanks, everyone, and have a good evening. We're looking forward to above zero temperatures tomorrow.